Awesome. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting interview in the Future Proof Your Law Firm group. Today, I am very excited to be having Reza Torkzadeh. He is the founder of Torque Law. Thank you so much for being here today, Reza. I really appreciate it.
Good morning, Luke. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I like to start all of these off real simple. Why don't you give a little bit of background on who you are, what your law firm kind of specializes in, and maybe what you guys are working on right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Reza Torkzadeh. I'm a personal injury attorney. I've been in practice for 15 years, and I founded Torque Law uh, 9 years ago, and we specialize in plaintiff's personal injury cases, anything from auto accidents to elder abuse and wrongful death cases, including product liability. And the thing that we're always looking to do is looking to grow and scale. And some of the exciting stuff that we've done in the past year was we acquired a firm out of Phoenix that does specialize in elder abuse. And that's a practice area that I see as emerging and upcoming. And I wanted to make sure that we add that to our portfolio of practice areas. And, it's just exciting to be representing clients in super, super important cases and doing some meaningful work. And so, I'm just really excited about all the work that we're doing and then the changes that ultimately occur through that work.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I'm really excited to talk to you about all of that today. But before we get into it, I'd love to know some of your background. Did you always know you kind of wanted to, maybe get into something in the legal field, or did somebody kind of just push you in that direction? How did you kind of get to where you are today, sort of?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I went to college to go to medical school. So I majored in biology. I did research at the medical school. I drove an ambulance one summer as an EMT. And in my last year in college, I realized, it just really wasn't for me to be a doctor. And I stayed an extra year in undergrad. And, I've always hated bullies, and I didn't know that I wanted to be an attorney or even go to law school. I just knew that, I love people. I love meeting new people. And I knew I hated bullies. And so the next natural thing for me to do is to figure out a way where, I can help those who cannot help themselves. I could, represent those people who cannot afford representation. And, naturally it took me to law school and then being a plaintiff's attorney, which is the, true in the moment story of David versus Goliath. The reality today is most of our clients wouldn't be able to afford us if we didn't work on a contingency fee. And, we're able to level the playing field for them. We go up against multi-billion and trillion-dollar corporations on a regular basis. And, that enough is motivation to really stand up and represent these folks who have been wronged or harmed in some way.
Awesome. That's fascinating. And I'm really glad to hear that you're, kind of sticking up for the little guy a little bit, because I know sometimes attorneys can get a bad rep for, being sharky or just being in it for the money. But it seems like almost everybody I've interviewed so far, I'd say, has really had a good motivation at the heart. And I think that really can lead though to a successful business for sure.
I think you're right, Luke. And look, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of really terrible lawyers out there who are in it for the wrong reason, and I think in many ways lawyers have earned the reputation that they've got. But there's a lot of really great people who are in it for the right reasons, and those are the ones that really stick out, at least to me. And those are the ones that I want to work with and learn from, and those are the folks that we look up to. So I think you're totally right.
Definitely. So moving forward a little bit to kind of the last year, I would love to know kind of how COVID affected your law firm, how you guys were able to maybe persevere through any challenges that you faced, or any challenges that maybe you're still facing, because I know, even though you guys have a little bit of a larger practice with multiple offices in multiple areas, I'm sure that comes up with different problems that, maybe a smaller firm might not have to face.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was a oh shit moment for us when COVID happened, and excuse my language. But pre-COVID, I was always looking on ways to improve our practice, whether that's the client experience, whether that is making us more efficient. So we made these huge investments in technology pre-COVID that a lot of people, including in my own firm, thought that I was crazy doing. Cloud-based phones, totally and completely wireless, paperless files. We don't have paper files. Using Slack as a means to communicate. Not many law firms across the country were using Slack pre-COVID, but I was being called crazy for all of the investments that we were making, and I didn't know something like COVID was going to happen. And within the span of a couple of hours from getting the stay-at-home orders, our entire staff of 60 plus employees were in their homes, and we didn't miss a beat. And it was because of those previous investments we had made. And so now all of a sudden I look like a genius, right? I look super smart. And it was just fortunate that, we had those things in place. Whereas, most of our competitors or other firms, they were spending their time trying to figure out how to be remote and how to operate remote. We were already there. And so the next step for us was, what are we going to do to get cases? Because people are off the roads. We didn't expect there to be any really new cases coming in. And the opposite happened. Because we had already dealt with how to go remote, and we were totally efficient and more effective this way, which is a surprise to me. We really focused and pivoted on how can we capture more of the market now. And 2020 ended up being our best year ever for new client intakes, which was really surprising to us. And I'll tell you, if we didn't have our pre-litigation cases, which is the majority of our cases currently, and we didn't have our litigation, we would be in a lot of trouble. But I think having that diversity, being prepared in terms of technology, really made a tremendous effort for us. And I think 2020 was a pivotal year. One of the very first things that I did was we called an all hands meeting with the entire staff on Zoom. And I wanted to let everybody know that their job is secure. They're going to continue to get paid, and nobody was going to be laid off. And that was a commitment that I made to the staff, a commitment that I made to the firm and myself. And that really relieved a lot of the stress and the unknown on my staff. And that allowed them to not worry about where they're going to get their rent money from, but it allowed my staff to know that, I'm there for them, and I will take care of them and make sure they get paid and be taken care of. And they got to, in turn, focus on work and focus on taking care of our clients.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you guys made that commitment, and that's very good. And I mean, everything you said there, I think people are going to have to, listen to what you said, because it's funny, sometimes when people prepare for things and stuff happens and you never even know, but being prepared, regardless whether COVID would have happened or not, I think those changes that you made to your business, I think definitely would have been fruitful. And I'm curious to see what your opinion is on, now that maybe the shutdowns are loosening a little bit, what the future of, law firms as a whole you can see. Do you see still people continuing to do things virtually? Do you think it's going to go fully back to normal? How do you foresee that kind of playing out?
Well, I'll tell you what we're doing. We are so efficient working from home. Folks are saving 2 hours, being in Southern California, at least 2 hours of commute. So they're saving that. I mean, that's a quality of life improvement. Having the ability to work from home, spending more time with their family, spending more personal time. That has had a tremendous positive impact on our firm. And I'm in no rush to have folks come back to the office at all. And I think if as a firm, as a firm owner, if you want to continue to attract the best talent to come work for you, you have to really think in terms of flexibility. And is it making a difference having your people come into the office physically every day just to say that, I see them every day? I don't think it is. I think we're probably heading towards some sort of a hybrid schedule. For us, I think, it's not as important, and we're in no rush to come back to the office. And I think that has proved to be a huge benefit to our entire staff, who sees the benefits of having that flexibility of working from home. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know that it ever goes back completely. I have friends who run law firms similar to ours and similar size who have everyone back in the office. So I think you'll probably see a mixture of both. And there is not one silver bullet or one solution and one size fits all for everybody. I think it depends on your team. It depends on how your firm is structured. And certainly at the end of the day, it depends on how effective you can be working virtually. But we have employees and team members in Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Kentucky, Illinois. So we're spread out around the country, and I think that we're used to this more virtual, remote type interaction and collaboration within the staff.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there that it's different for everybody. There's not going to be one right answer, depending on even the type of cases it may be. Some might just be better suited, to do it virtually or not. So, I think it'll definitely vary, throughout the country, really. And for the next years, it'll be interesting to see. Something that you mentioned when you were just talking about that was, how are you guys going to get cases? And, obviously I'm happy to hear that you guys were able to have such a successful year. That's awesome. But I can see, definitely a lot of people struggling from maybe going to, maybe it's easier to pass referrals, or like you said, people are driving, so there's car accidents. It's easy to throw up a billboard. So a lot of people are having to maybe shift to something else, which I know a lot of people are going into doing stuff digitally. And I know I see you guys are pretty active on social media. I'd be curious your opinion on the evolution of marketing, advertising when it comes to having it in more of an online format, maybe what you guys are doing or what's working.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And, I've been doing this for 15 years, and we're always going to have the issue of how are we going to get our next cases. And a mentor of mine really early on in my career asked me what my most important case was. And while I was sitting there trying to figure out what my biggest case is, he stopped me and said, look, your most important case is your next one. And, it didn't make that much sense to me at the time, and it does now. And so I think as a firm owner, especially in plaintiff's personal injury, which is ultra competitive, I think we're always going to have this evolving, where are we going to put our ad dollars now? And what used to work might not work today, and what works today might not work tomorrow. And I've gone through all of those different cycles. Yellow Pages at one time, I think I probably started my career at the tail end of Yellow Pages, but I think Yellow Pages at one time were probably very effective. And for us today, the thing that's working the best is digital. We don't do billboards. We're not on radio right now. We're testing TV a little bit. But we've seen those cost per acquisition numbers drive up substantially. And so, our biggest bang for our buck has been on digital, whether it's pay-per-click or social media, other remnant ads, remarketing, retargeting. And, we've always tried to stay ahead of the latest and greatest technology and methods to attract clients. And so what that means is we always try to go where other people are not. And I haven't been afraid to spend money and time and resources in testing things out. And I think that's been a real blessing for us, in that we're always testing. And you have to know your numbers, right? I mean, if you're spending money on ads, if you don't know what your cost per acquisition is, then you shouldn't be spending money right now until you can figure out how to measure the effectiveness of that. If you don't know what your drop percentage is per month, then you need to figure out and put in place mechanism and processes so that you know how many cases you're dropping or being subbed out on. Otherwise, if you don't have the data, you don't know where to put extra dollars. You don't know where to scale, where to pull back. And I think part of making the commitment to advertise, because it is very, very expensive to do so, is first fixing your back house, knowing how you're going to measure, how you're going to track where the source is coming from, and then be able to look at that on I look at it on a daily basis. I get reports every morning, but at the very minimum, look at it on a weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, and be able to make pivots and changes that way. Otherwise, if you're spending, $10,000 on an acquisition of a case and your average settlement is $7,500, you're upside down, and before you know it, it's too late.
Definitely. Yeah. That is crucial for sure. Knowing your numbers is very important because, some people are more scared to get into, advertising or marketing as a whole, or some people just jump right into it. But regardless of where you are on the spectrum, before you even think about that, I think it's important, like you said, to make sure that your back end processes are able to support any incoming traffic that's coming in. Because like you said, it's very easy to think, oh, I'm getting 5 new cases a month through my advertising efforts, it must be working. But in reality, you could be spending more than you're making. And then, like you said, you could find that out when it's too late. So, everybody that's watching this, listening, make sure you check out, make sure you know your numbers. Listen to Reza, because he definitely knows what he's talking about when it comes to that. Something you mentioned before our show is kind of an upcoming thing you were working on, some type of, networking group and platform that you guys have put together. As we wrap up the show, I'd love for you to kind of talk about that to our viewers.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, this is about a year and a half before COVID hit, we started a company called LawWorks. And it's a play on sort of WeWork, where it was a co-working space for lawyers, similar to what you'd find in like a Regus or an executive suite somewhere, where, and you could see it behind me right now, we have conference rooms, we have private offices, we have hot desks, we have common areas. And the idea and the real mission behind that was to bring lawyers into one place where they can network. It's a plug and play solution. You're not signing a long-term lease, and you're networking. And our networking events were, pretty substantial. We had judges showing up to some of them. We had prominent attorneys, and the groups were getting big. And then COVID hit, so we were shut down for about a year. And now, as we're coming back, what we decided to do at the beginning of the year is, in addition to Office Space, which is now open and ready to use, we brought all of our members onto a platform, and through technology, we connected them all. So in real time, all of our members are collaborating, they're exchanging ideas, they're helping each other with their firms, with their practice areas. We have some really cool technology behind it, where we're providing a referral network. So built right into there. And it's really incredible. And look, I think the future of the practice of law is changing. I think 5 or 10 years from now, it's going to be totally different than what it is today. I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of consolidation with law firms. I think there's going to be a lot of private equity money and Wall Street money coming in as non-lawyer law firm owners come in. And that's a reality that I think a lot of people are maybe in denial about, but it will happen. And I think in order for us to survive and to flourish, we have to do it together. We have to do it collaboratively. We have to exchange ideas. And this is sort of building a think tank and a mind trust of, that's most talented lawyers that have been around, young, brand new lawyers who've got great ideas. And really, it's a way to network and help each other out, and bring together like-minded folks who realize that the practice of law is changing. And I don't think you can do it alone anymore. And I think having mentors, having people who've been there before, and having a fresh set of eyes on what the future holds will make all the difference.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, that's part of the reason why I created this group, was because definitely, like you said, the way that law firms are operating is changing. And if people can learn strategies to adapt, watch these interviews and learn what other successful individuals are doing, hopefully that can, pass along some knowledge. And the networking, I say this a lot, but the saying goes that your network is your net worth. Having the, individuals in your circle that are maybe a step above you and you can learn from them, super, super valuable. So if anybody wants to learn about LawWorks, is it something they go to lawworks.com? Where can they find out more about it?
Yeah, lawworks.com. We have a new plan that just came out. It's $99 a month. There's no commitment, but it gets you access to the networking group. So, if you're not in Southern California and you can't take advantage of our 2 locations, one in Orange County or one in Los Angeles, then for $99 a month, you'll be tapped right into the entire membership. You'll be able to post your questions. You can go and check out what else other people have done. You'll have access to the referral network. So if you're looking for cases, then you'll be able to receive them and claim cases on there. And with the $99 a month, I think that's probably the cheapest and most effective investment you'll ever make in your law practice. I know that when I first started, I wish I had a network like that I could just plug right in and have access to an unlimited amount of knowledge and resources. And everyone within the network wants to help. They're like-minded. They like to collaborate. And I think if you're a brand new lawyer or you're a seasoned veteran lawyer, try it out. And I will guarantee you, if you're in there for a month, you're in our networking group for a month and you don't like it, I'll refund your money. But I think it's as good as it gets in terms of being able to have a network of members almost instantly.
Oh yeah. No, that sounds very, very valuable for sure. And, I wish you guys the best of luck with this kind of new launch. It sounds very promising and I bet it'll be good. I'd love to maybe have another follow-up, interview in a couple months or, next year to talk about how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as we wrap this up, I got one final question for you. You shared a lot of value today, Reza, and I really appreciate it. What would be like one more nugget, one more, valuable piece of information you could share for somebody who is maybe struggling to kind of future proof their law firm or is struggling to kind of get into this modern era of doing things? What is one final piece of advice you could give?
Well, I think if you believe in yourself and you believe in your team, my advice is to just be relentless and not give up. Look, I've seen the ups and downs. I've been in the ups and downs. I've been to the point where I almost threw the towel in, and I believed in myself. I believed the vision that I had for the firm. And so if you do, then the tough times don't always last, and there's always going to be challenges. You're going to go through them. And it's a matter of finding solution to those. So I think if you're struggling, whatever it may be, maybe you're struggling with getting new cases. Maybe you're struggling with settling the cases that you have. Maybe you're struggling with hiring staff, which I know is a major, major source of headache and heartache for a lot of us law firm owners. The tough times don't always last. And if you're just relentless in looking for the solution and coming up with the solution because you believe in your vision, you believe in yourself, you believe in your team, then just hang in there and reach out for help. There are a lot of folks that would love to hear from you and your experiences. I, for one, would love to hear from you. I would love to hear about your experiences and share with you my wins, my losses, and so that you don't have to repeat them. So, just be relentless and believe in yourself.
Definitely. Those are very valuable for sure. I think, having that belief in yourself is obviously, the place that you want to start, because you're not going to be able to get anywhere. How are you going to convince somebody to work with you if you don't even think you could do a good job or whatever? So I think that's very important, but it definitely can be difficult. And a lot of times reaching out to other people, like you said, is really kind of the way to go, because like you said, you're not reinventing the wheel here. There are a lot of people, who have had very successful law firms, or really just businesses in general, that would probably be happy to share some of their knowledge so that you can, maybe be just one step ahead, and learn so you don't have to make some of the mistakes that they've made. So thank you so much for being here today, Reza. If anybody wants to learn more about your law firm, where could they go to find out about that, or just get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can shoot me an email. It's Reza, REZA, at torklaw, TORKLAW.com. Just shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And you can, of course, find us on social media and check out lawworks.com. I think it's a game changer for any law firm owner that's out there.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching this episode, and we will see you all in the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Luke.